Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben. First off, let me apologize for being half naked. See, in life we have to make choices sometimes, and I can either turn the air condition on, or I can avoid having lots of background noise in the video. So for the sake of you all, I'm roasting. Yes, for humanity I burn. But fear not, for as soon as I'm done recording this video, I promise to put my pants back on. Anyway, the ignorant often wonder, why? Why humanity first? Can't we just be loving towards aliens? They're so cute. And then what happens time and time again? We get eaten because of our naivety. Let's cut the virtue signaling. Aliens are out there, and when they find us, they're probably going to kill us. So I make these videos so you don't have to end up as some sort of human skin boot on the foot of a deplorable alien. And what greater threat to humanity has there ever been than the parasitic flood? The flood doesn't just kill humans, it infects us, uses us, makes us fellow parasite soldiers. The flood destroys us from the inside out, and save for complete annihilation of our galaxy, little can be done to stop it. That is why today we are covering the flaws and advantages of the flood. And don't forget, if you enjoy the video today, or if you learn anything from it, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Unless you hate humanity, then this video is not for you. Listen, I know you don't want to hear about the advantages of aliens, but as a wise commenter said on our video the other day, quote, "To kill the Xeno, you must know the Xeno." Ah, words straight from the Humanity First codebook. Very wise, Joshua. But Bubba, don't get me wrong, I do respect your suspicion. For as the codebook also says, a distrustful mind is a mind unlikely to be sucked out of its head. We begin with the advantages. You only said flaws in the title! Whatever, you clicked, I win. We've already listed this as an advantage for a few different alien species, but having a single clear purpose might be more of a motivating factor for the Flood than any other alien group. They want to spread, and they seek to massacre and consume all life in the galaxy in order to do so. There is nothing else for the Flood besides consumption and the expansion that derives from it. The Flood has lasted through the eons because more than almost any other life in existence, Flood organisms are driven to survive by an insatiable appetite for the living. So what does consumption entail in the world of the Flood? Well, it means infecting their enemies and mutating them into a variety of different forms. The only way that the Flood knows is infestation and assimilation, inducting prey into their army. And when I say prey, I mean just about any species can be assimilated into the Flood. They're basically super horny parasites with little reservations about cross-species breeding. They're not quite Na'vi perverted, but they're up there. Flood reproductive prowess means that just about any living thing in the universe can be brought into their ranks. For the Flood, destroying their enemies is directly linked with their natural drive to reproduce. Both happen at the same time. Not only can the Flood assimilate both the living and the dead into their horde, but so too with each organism they infect, their intelligence and capabilities improve. They absorb the intelligence of their prey. Thus, the Flood seeks out the most intelligent life forms, and it has been doing so for an incalculable amount of time. The Flood is perfectly evolved to infect the entire galaxy. As you can see, all of their behaviors link together. Their drive to reproduce leads them to capture prey, which in turn only makes them all collectively stronger and thus better able to reproduce. As implied by the previous advantage, the Flood learns collectively. They don't have to worry about teaching or training every single member in their ranks. Everything one learns, so does the other via hive mind. If one improves, all improve simultaneously. Every time the Flood successfully conquers another species, planet, or part of the galaxy, the entire Flood becomes that much more unstoppable. This far into the Flood's reign, they don't have to worry about a slow infestation process either. The assimilation process is quick, and defeated prey can be converted in a matter of seconds. Creatures can be mutated into combat-ready Flood forms in an instant. There's no delay that gives their enemies a chance to stop the assimilation. It just happens. They grow in battle by the second, and every moment that the battle lingers on, the Flood often grows stronger. The Flood's appetite can be affected by extreme temperatures, but in general they are capable of surviving in harsh conditions. They can survive in temperatures ranging from a negative 103 degrees all the way to 127 degrees Fahrenheit. And if my math is correct, in Celsius, that's potato degrees, I think? In any case, the flood's ability to withstand extreme temperatures is sort of irrelevant, because as the flood spreads, they simply alter their environments to suit their needs. They form into a biomass on any surface and fill the air with their spores. From there, a flood hive is developed and the flood thrives. The flood has a series of developmental stages that they cycle through. In the coordinated stage, a Gravemind emerges to direct the entire flood. The Gravemind is the ultimate flood intelligence, and it can control every flood organism directly, thereby overriding their primitive instincts and making them stronger and smarter. The Gravemind is powerful enough to engulf entire worlds. And with Graveminds at the helm and entire worlds assimilated, the flood can then move into the interstellar stage, in which the flood's intelligence is so powerful that it can manipulate physics and leave a star system. And once no life is left unconsumed in an entire galaxy, and no intelligence or technology left unlearned, the flood moves into its transgalactic stage, in which it spreads to other galaxies for further consumption and reproduction. One major advantage the flood has is that their organisms can, to some degree, wield human weapons and weapons of other species as well. As we've discussed, the flood absorbs intelligence and technology into their hive mind, and well, this means that flood organisms can learn to operate and perhaps even build the technology of its enemies. Yes, it's true that the flood isn't very skilled with ranged weaponry, but they do very well with heavy weapons and can somewhat proficiently operate vehicles. Oh, and of course, there's no cure for a flood infestation. Once a host is infected, there's no way to stop the zombification. There was once a belief that prehistoric humanity had developed a cure, but that turned out to be false. There's no answer to the flood's ability to consume and propagate. There's no way to prepare to defend against the flood, but to arm up and accept that there's going to be a few losses along the way. Okay, so the flood is pretty bad news, but they have flaws as well. What harm has a bunch of parasites ever done anyway? Flood society resembles a socialist utopia. There's no wealth, poverty, crime, or disease. They are the disease. There's just all organisms working as one for the same cause. But even for deadly parasites that are part of a collective hive mind, utopias are, well, lacking in real-world application. While the flood benefits from a collective intelligence where any improvement to one organism in the ranks is shared by all, at the same time, any flaw or weakness is shared by all as well, making them collectively vulnerable to an all-encompassing solution devised by their enemies to destroy them. The Halo Array is one example of this. It was a weapon the Flood wasn't prepared to combat. To be fair, the Array is kind of a cheat code, but still, there is no balanced distribution of strengths and weaknesses throughout their armies, and as such, the same vulnerabilities befall all Flood organisms. A never-ending lust for food might be a great motivator for a parasitic army, but at the same time it makes the Flood dependent on resources to survive, and resources, that is, in great or even infinite number. Thus, the way to totally eliminate them is easy to figure out. They need to be starved. And while their enemies can't easily implement a strategy that would accomplish this, as any enemies are potential food sources themselves, this still means that the Flood must always find food, and as they grow their ranks, the less food there is. Of course, as we know, the uninfested life in the universe will always have the option of complete self-annihilation in order to defeat the Flood, but such a strategy is of course somewhat self-defeating. Still, the need for constant replenishment endows the Flood with a flaw that is shared by humans. Well, the weak humans, that is, the need for sustenance. Remember, my friends, as the Humanity First codebook says, the glorious soldier does not need to eat, only to kill the Xeno and feel his stomach filled with glory. As massive and powerful as the Flood is, and as easily as they can infest other life, they still can be killed and without much difficulty. Plasma weapons do just fine in eliminating Flood organisms, so while a Flood infestation may be very bad news, at least their overwhelming hordes aren't tricky to kill. Just shoot them with common weapons. Plasma will burn them, and a lack of air conditioning will burn me. The Flood is a high-level intelligence that continuously grows more intelligent as long as it exists. But as parasites, there's also gaps in the cognition of Flood organisms. They are not very dexterous in combat and have serious issues with handling ranged weaponry, as we said before. And despite learning and thinking collectively, lower flood organisms are still not that complex in their thinking and behavior. The Gravemind might be able to control flood movement and strategy across the entire flood, but that doesn't mean that low-level individual interactions are as coordinated, and battlefield tactics are thus somewhat lacking. Flood invasions consist of pretty standard alien behavior, with large swarms attempting to simply overwhelm their enemies. This leaves room for the flood to be outsmarted and outmaneuvered. Okay, all, we've made it to the end of the video. I survived, though I am sweating just a little bit and I can't find my pants. Anyways, please click in that top corner to rank the flood on a scale of 1 to 5. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. It is your duty to humanity. Anyways, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.